Well, I don't know if I would call this a happy recap because we only do those when they win. But all things considered, this is a happy recap, and this is a special edition of the DoDCast. We don't normally do one after the first game of a doubleheader, but because of the news that broke last night and through the morning this morning, I'm Ron Juckett, and he's Ricky Keeler, and welcome to this special edition of the DoDCast. Ricky will be with you tonight, and maybe depending on what happens, but I'm tend to doubting it. After the second game of this split admission doubleheader, but the Nats dropped the first one 4-2 to the San Francisco Giants. The only positives really on the field being the two-run homer by Tony Forbags off of Nats villain Hunter Strickland. And Ricky, I know you didn't watch much of the game, but your thoughts of this performance today?
Well, it's to be expected. They had such a late night last night. I mean, I'm sure the team is feeling the after effects of what happened with Bryce Harper yesterday. So it makes sense that there was a little bit of a lull. I don't think anybody expected Chris Stratton to go out there and strike out 10.
Oh, he looked great.
Over 6+ innings, but that's what this offense is right now. The depth is gone. It's really what's left. And you give Rendon credit. He gave the fans something happy with the home run off of Strickland, and right now it's just down to guys that don't normally play are going to get to play, and they'll have to step up. But give credit to someone like Andrew Stevenson, who picks up 2 hits today, has been playing great defense, and maybe starting to come into his own now that he's a little bit more comfortable at the major league level. There
were 2 opening day starters in the lineup today for this first game. There should be, I think, three or four tonight. But here were the 2, Rendon and Zimmerman.
I don't think Rendon played opening day.
Oh, that's right, he didn't. So there was 1 opening day starter in the lineup today. That's amazing. Let me go through the totals real quick, and then we'll get to the Harper stuff. Promise. 4 runs, 9 hits, no errors for the Giants. They go to 47 and 71. And you know what? I feel a lot more awake now than I did when I did this at 1 o'clock this morning. I told you I was going to Dunkin' Donuts, and I did. Nats fall to 69 and 46, 2 runs on 7 hits and no errors. Flashy defense again today. Chris Stratton with a win. He goes to 1-2. A.J. Cole, he gave you 6 innings, guys. He pitched as well as he possibly could. He had the 1 bad inning. He goes to 1-3, and Sam Dyson sucks up his 9th save of the year.
And hopefully that's the last time A.J. Cole pitches for a long time.
Well, you know what? He wasn't terrible today, Ricky. 6 innings.
Well, no, he's been okay. I mean, he hasn't fallen on his face in any of these starts. He's had maybe a bad inning in each of the first 2 Miami games, but at least with Steven Strasburg making a rehab tomorrow, you would think Strasburg, all things considered, would go this weekend in San Diego.
I would hope so. 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, all in that 1 bad inning. He walked 3 and struck out 6. 100 pitches and 62 strikes, which is good for AJ. So Elise looked good. He only gave up a hit in his inning. And Matt Grace, 2 innings, 2 hits, a run that was earned. He walked 1 and struck out 1. He threw 33 pitches today, did some yeoman's work, saves the law firm at the end tonight behind Scherzer. So, and we didn't even have to see Man Albers. So the bullpen going into this basically 3rd game of the triple header is in very good shape. So Lee's 13 pitches and 8 strikes. Grace 33 for 21. Nats didn't have a lot of chances today. The Giants kept them off balance. They only had 2 chances with runners in scoring position. They went 1 for 2. And the only extra base hit of the 7 was Rendon's home run off of Hunter Strickland. All right, before we get to the Harper stuff, let's take a look at the chat. Judo says, I don't even care that we lost. I don't either, Judo. Bryce has a good chance to return for the playoffs. And Anthony Allbags, I like that. Took Strickland deep. Cole pitched okay. Poor run support has made him look bad, though. Let's get to the Harper news. If you missed it earlier, it is a bone bruise. There is no structural damage done to his knee, but it is a severe bone bruise. They are hoping that he is able to return at some point this regular season. My guess, Ricky, is that he might pinch hit the last couple of weeks of the regular season, and that you probably won't even consider him in the field until the NLDS.
Yeah, that's a safe assumption because I mean, you look at there's only 1 month of minor league games left unless Hagerstown makes the playoffs. So you're not really going to have a position to put him in any rehab games, even if the timetable's fast. He's going to have to go down to West Palm, get in some simulated games, kind of what you saw with Daniel Murphy last year. Much serious injury than what Murphy had, but he's going to have to go through that process, and it's going to be tough to even risk him in any of these games. I don't think you maybe have to start him once or twice just to get him used to playing the field again, because I think that you don't want to throw Harper in October cold and not playing the field for the first time in 2 months. I mean, it's not an ideal proposition, but they'll do what they can. And Bryce, is being the super healer that he is and being the athletic guy that he is, might get back quicker than most people.
Well, there are advantages, as you know, to being 24. As opposed to someone who is in their late 30s or at the end of their career. I mean, people forget just how young Bryce Harper really is. I mean, remember, he was Eric Fetty's high school catcher, and Fetty's just making the show now. So, yeah, I mean, you would think that he would get in a couple innings. My guess is, as someone who's old enough to remember the Kurt Gibson injury when it actually happened in 1988, it also would not surprise me if he was just a strict pinch hitter and got pinch ran 4, depending on how fast he is. And because there's no DH in the National League for the playoffs, pinch hitters can play a major role in determining who wins the series.
The question would be, is this team good enough to where you can afford to do that?
Well, look, they only have 10 games left against a team with a winning record this year.
Well, I mean in October. I mean in a postseason series.
I would think that whoever they get in the three-headed monster for the National League Central, they probably could beat. I mean, they beat the Cubs last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinals aren't that great. It really depends on whoever wins that Central Division. Do they limp across the title, or do they catch fire the last couple of weeks? Because they're going to be playing full out. I mean, that Game 1 is likely going to be in D.C. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, and I did not play one in a Holiday Inn Express last night. How much of a risk there is for him to aggravate that injury further? Mm-hmm. If he's done all he can do to it without, then yes, probably some innings in the field, or maybe some, like what we saw with Michael A. Taylor today, just kind of go in and play a couple innings here or there after he pinch hits. But if there's a risk of further injury, I really can't see how they put him in the field until they know he's at least certain that he can't do further damage, 80-85%.
I know Wirt's injury was a little more serious, but Wirt's been out for basically 2 months with a bone bruise.
Right, and that's the other thing, Ricky, that he, Wirt's got 13 years on Harper,
mm-hmm.
and the foot injury just takes a lot longer to heal. Let's see, Judo says Max the Immaculate one pitching against the last place team after they played 2 games already in 24 hours. Yeah, it should be interesting tonight to see how quickly this one goes. And Judo asks if we can hire Vin Scully for the postseason if Bryce comes back to pinch hit. You talk about a roll of the dice, Judo. In the year of the improbable, that would be the impossible to happen. There, I mangled that one enough. But back to your point, I mean, we've talked about this before, really since Memorial Day, with the exception of a couple important games here or there. The Nationals haven't played a meaningful game since they salted this division away.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are concerned when the Marlins came to town, or down in Miami, the lead might get beneath 10 games. Are you kidding? Most teams would kill for a 10-game lead this late in the season. And now we're talking a 14 or 15-game lead here, especially if they win tonight. But we've absolutely run out of possible injuries that can happen. We are now into MacGyver Belichick territory here of duct tape, bubble gum, and Troy Brown playing corner.
That's what they're saying. Giancarlo Stanton can't hit 50 homers in the last 20 games, even though he's trying his best to.
Well, they had to win, 34 of the last 49?
Yeah, but he homered again today.
Yeah, he's hit Yeah, it's down 41 on the year.
42.
42 on the year, which is a franchise record. It's the 13th of August, by the way. And he's hit 27 from the 2-hole, which is absolutely amazing. I know that tonight, after the second game, we'll go through more thoroughly what happened the day in baseball. Haven't heard anything about Nolan Arenado's injury. He was hit in the back of his left hand, yanked himself out of the game. Don't know anything else about that.
I want to chime in, though. I know you did the DoDCast last night. I wasn't around.
I slept through the DoDCast last night. It was done, but
but to me, baseball got extremely lucky here.
Oh my goodness!
There's no reason other than a paid gate that game should have been played last night. I'm sorry, the Giants stink. The game doesn't mean anything. The game won't mean anything for the division. The game won't mean anything for the home field in the NLDS because they had a 10-game lead in the loss column on Chicago and about 11 on St. Louis. I'm sorry. I don't care. I get it. You want to get the paid gate. You want to get every game in you can. The only thing that game could have hurt was the Nationals. And if there was no Bryce Harper in the postseason, they would take drastic hit in the ratings.
Well, it's the second time in the last 11 months, Ricky, that a Nationals player has gotten hurt following a rain delay.
Mm-hmm.
Wilson Ramos last year tore his ACL right after a rain delay on a soupy infield on a play that he just kind of took the wrong step. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this tonight. One of the reasons why the other reason why we're not doing it, doing just the one show is I want to do some takeaways from the injury and want to write that during the course of the game tonight so you can have that to read in the morning. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there was no reason in the world for that game to be played. You are risking injury, and that's what happens. And I don't care if you're Hunter Strickland or the ball boy or that. You just don't risk multi-million-dollar players to make sure that you get your money at the gate. You know what they should do, Major League Baseball should do, and I'll elaborate more in the piece for tomorrow morning, is that up to 4 times a year. I mean, people are asking for retractable roofs, and that's just not going to happen. Is that if you lose 4 gates a year, that MLB should reimburse you for the average gate. Whatever your average attendance is for the year, they should hand you that gate, just to make it fair. Because, as you said, I mean, this game meant absolutely nothing. You can't do that before the All-Star break, but because the Giants are so terrible, and the game meant absolutely nothing. And so,
let's be honest, the Giants probably would have rather not played. They got to go to Miami tonight.
Right. So essentially they've had to play everyone's had to play 3 games in 24 hours. Then they have to go to Miami to play tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And a game that won't be over tonight till about 10. No one got to bed until about 2:30 this morning. We wrapped up here about 1:37 this morning, I think is what time I finally got to try to close my eyes. Imagine that for the players. And then now essentially you're playing a 3rd game of a triple header. I don't get it.
Scott Boras brought up a good point. I think I saw Jerry Krasnick wrote it on ESPN, or at least he tweeted it. Boras brought up a point about the bases.
Yes.
It's got to be something to do with the wet bases. And we talk about the collision rule, how that happened because of the Posey injury. Maybe now with the Harper injury, something happens with these bases. And the grounds crew does the best they can.
Oh, absolutely.
After what happened with the torrential downpours, you can only do so much with the field to make it as playable as possible. But you have to wonder if something changed with the bases between now and the beginning of next year.
Well, it rained so hard last night in Washington, Ricky, that they had the roof leaked at the WNBA game at the new Capital One, the old Verizon Center.
Mm-hmm.
There's water on the floor.
Right.
The Washington Post recorded over a 10-minute period last night 0.76 inches of rain. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And these fields are so, it's not just a plop of grass that they throw dirt on. I mean, everything is just sculptured to a T. But still, you can only take so much water. And if you're waiting till 10 o'clock to play, what's the point?
Exactly. They make you wait 3 hours around after the chaos that was last Friday night. Whoever you choose to believe, it's chaos. It doesn't matter if you believe the Nats were right or if baseball was wrong. Somebody was wrong. I don't know if it was people left or people didn't leave. Somebody was wrong.
Well, you can't, going back to Friday, you can't sit there and call a game at 9:20 and not announce it till 9:50.
Mm-hmm.
And they had no choice but to call Friday's game because you knew what rain was coming. And last night, they pretty much, if they wanted to play the game, they knew that they had that window there. It was going to be late, which is exactly what happened. But they knew they were going to have a window where it wasn't at least thundering out. And I was amazed when the TV pictures finally came on and pictures from what our buddy Drew sent us from the game itself. How many people were still there last night at 10 o'clock at night? I mean, that was a very healthy crowd. They weren't there for 1 o'clock. But they were there for 10. But yes, there's going to have to be some policies reviewed after this season. I don't know what – it's been a long time since I've actually seen a base close-up. I thought they were canvas. I take it they're not, right?
I have the article here.
I mean, he slid all over it. I mean, that just clearly was not safe, and they were all like that.
According to MLB, this is from the Krasnick article. According to MLB Rule 1.06, Major League bases are marked by white canvas or rubber covered and are securely attached to the ground.
Well, they're put not in a stake,
mm-hmm.
but, so they're not coming up. But I don't know if those were – I think MLB supplies the bases. They're usually changed out now for every series. They're marked with something, either who they're playing with or the holiday or what have you. It's, because everything is so much more commercial than it was before. But there shouldn't be anything slick about a base.
Absolutely. We have 3 updates.
Okay.
First, non-Nats update. Nolan Arenado has a contusion, not a broken hand.
Okay.
That's great news for the Rockies.
Great news for baseball, too.
Yep. Dan Kolko has Dusty on Bryce. He'll be back before the end of the year. He'll be back in time for the stretch drive. So that confirms what Mike Rizzo said today.
Right. All good news for that.
And bad news, Brian Goodman left today's game with groin tightness. Getting worked on now from Mark Zuckerman of Masson. Dusty said, boy, it's getting tough.
Oh, you saw
they're out of outfielders. If you put Brian Goodman on the DL, you're down to Jose Marmolejos in Double-A as your last 40-man outfielder.
That's stunning.
Or Rafael Bautista, who's just coming back from injury himself. He's been rehabbing in the GCL lately.
Wow. Well, the good news is that you've seen a lot of progress so far from Andrew Stevenson.
Absolutely.
You've
seen why they drafted him in the second round. His defense is really good. And that was as a center fielder. He's doing really good in left field.
You know who's doing good in left field? They mentioned it on Charlie and Dave mentioned it today on the radio. Is Adam Lind.
Uh-huh.
He's not out there hurting you defensively, and his bat is pretty good.
Lind and Kendrick have not done anything in left field to lose you a game. I think that's all you could ask for.
Absolutely. This team at the moment, with Taylor coming up today and Harper going on the disabled list, has 10 players on the disabled list. 10!
Mm-hmm.
And yet, they hold a massive lead in the division and have somehow held it together. For as much as we kind of scratch our heads over the moves that Dusty Baker may or may not make in a game, he deserves a lot of credit for this team not imploding, because they've had to replace players that my goodness, there are, as we said earlier, there was only one opening day starter in the lineup today. They've recovered from Eaton not being there. They've lost Trey Turner for a long time. Jason Worth isn't there. This is probably the story that we haven't really told as much as we probably should. Despite everything, they're rolling.
Exactly. They don't really go through huge losing streaks. I mean, they might lose a couple games in a row, but then they'll rally back and they'll win a ball game, or they'll get down 8-0 and they'll come back to make it 8-6. You rarely ever see a game where they just don't play well for 9 innings.
The only time that I've been really concerned about that was by the All-Star break when they had played that 28 games in 30 days, and we were all tired.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were making the minimal mistakes. But when they had that bad weekend or bad series down in Miami, whenever the heck that was, I wasn't seeing that. The offense wasn't clicking, but I wasn't seeing a team that was on the verge of being bad. I just saw a team that, look, you have pulled up everyone you possibly can from Syracuse that can possibly play. And that was the week that Kevin Brown worked. So you even had the Syracuse announcers in the booth, in the radio booth, and you were doing the best that you can. I'm not seeing a lack of effort. I haven't seen a lack of hustle. This team goes out and plays hard, but you can only replace so many names. Judo says the sports gods don't like DC. Ever since Farrat smashed his head against the wall, Judo, ever since then, we've talked about that on the show.
Here's an interesting one from Chelsea James of the Post. Dusty said 10 days to 2 weeks is better than what they thought Harper would miss, but emphasized they don't know when he'll be back. So why the heck is Dusty throwing out 10 days to 2 weeks?
Well, they've not been right on an injury this year. We thought that Taylor would be back before the All-Star game.
They don't throw out the time. Like, why the heck, if you're Dusty and everybody's saying no timetable, no timetable, no timetable, why the heck are you floating out 2 weeks? You don't need Bryce Harper back in 2 weeks.
No. You don't. Again, you and I aren't really medical professionals, so I don't know. It really depends on, can he make this worse? If he can't make it worse, it's just a matter of managing the pain.
Mm-hmm.
If he can make this worse, if it's on a borderline of dear Lord, you don't want him to come back and pop an ACL his first game back.
Yeah, he has to keep his future in mind. Nats fans don't want to. I'm sure some Nats fans don't want to hear that, but there is a $400 million paycheck coming his way in a year and a half that he has to worry about.
And make up for the Nationals too. That doesn't mean that he's going to leave, but he's going to get the money.
Right. That's why
Regardless.
That what made last night almost so devastating was it wasn't just this year. It was seeing potentially $100 million go down the drain.
Well, I think, it would potentially mean something to his pocket, but look, here's a guy that has matured before everyone's very eyes. He's become a quiet leader on this team. He has carried this team on his back at times this year and has becoming, is joining Ryan Zimmerman as a face of the franchise. We've watched this young man blossom into what the sport needs. And that would be we talk about the money. That's the big thing that keeps us going in the off season. But, just what it means to his playing career, let alone the money. You just don't want to see that. I also want to take the time to thank all of our fellow fan-sided sites who reached out to us last night during the game to offer their sympathies. It was greatly appreciated. It was just such we do these games on Twitter, then we come and talk about them here. I have never been so busy during a game as I was last night, because that's what people want to talk about. In fact, we did between 10 and 1:30 yesterday morning and this morning, we did 59,000 Twitter impressions, which means that there was a lot of conversation. I don't know what we normally get for a game, but that's pretty heavy. So thanks for that. It means a great deal. There are more important things than life than money, and you just don't want to see. You don't want to see people get hurt, but yeah, you don't screw around with knee injuries. And someone at one point today tweeted at me, Rick, that they had a similar bone bruise injury and had to have their knee cleaned out. You just get fluid and gunk in there. And so even though this was not a repairable injury, it's going to be rest. It's going to be something now he has to watch out for the rest of his career.
Absolutely. That's the long-term effects that he has to monitor and he has to keep in mind. Sure, could he come back in a month? Who knows? But he needs to make sure that he's as close to 100% as possible, because nobody's 100% this late in the season.
Right.
The goal you want is for what Daniel Murphy did last year. Again, different injury, but Murphy came back with about a week to go, got a few games in, And then somehow, what would have been the MVP of that series had the Nats actually won it. He was that good. So if Bryce had a Murphy-like NLDS, I mean, Murphy kind of fit the blueprint for how you come off of not really getting any at-bats going into a playoff series.
Well, the good news is that today's the 13th. You got 2 weeks, really 2.5 weeks before the rosters expand to 40.
And they're running out of people for the rosters to expand to 42.
That's true. That's true. They'll all be up. It'll be the walking wounded, but they'll all be up. The good news is, and I think they'll do this a lot with Jason Worth as well, is that you're just going to see a different rotation of outfielders.
Mm-hmm.
That no one is going to get an extended amount of playing time come September, because it really doesn't matter. The Mets are in the middle of a very good sell-off as far as getting rid of some salary. Certain members of the Keeler household may or may not be happy that Neil Walker is gone, but there's just no one that's going to catch them. And now that the Marlins sale is probably final, Miami will have an interesting decision. Do they do this now, or do they hold on to what they have, or whatever? So it sucks. It sucks. But the news is as good with Harper as you possibly could have, considering what we watched last night.
Just please, nobody float injury timelines. That's all. They don't get, let's put it this way. They don't get injuries right. They don't get timelines right. I don't want to see any talk of 10 days, 2 weeks, month, whatever. Only give timetables when they're close to exact timetables. I know that's hard and we're not doctors, but they did it like you said with Michael Taylor. They did it with Steven Strasburg saying one start, and one start became, 2 or 3 turns through.
Right. Rehab starts tomorrow, but 75 pitches or 5 innings, whichever comes first.
And you would think if he pitches well, he will start in his hometown this weekend in San Diego.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's a good thing. Let's talk a little bit about Cole before we go. I think it's probably his last start for a while, but if this is his last start for a couple of weeks until Syracuse's season is over, he actually acquitted himself pretty well today.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, he's not been bad. You just kind of know what you're going to get, and this start was better than the other 2 we had. He's going to go out there. He's going to have a little bit of erratic command. He's going to leave a couple pitches up, but he only gave up 1 extra base hit. So it wasn't like his outing. He was giving up a lot of hard hit balls compared. Really, the Miami game, he made 2 mistakes: the pitch to Dietrich in the 4th, and then he threw a first pitch fastball to Stanton, which you absolutely just never do. So that's things he's got to learn. And I think you have Cole as a guy you can use in September to rest guys. I think Fetty, who threw 7 strong innings today in AAA, becomes another name that you could use to rest guys. So you have 2 guys you can now rely on. And I'm telling you guys, I know people don't like Edwin Jackson. He has done everything you could ask him to do.
He pitched really well last night.
So the Edwin Jackson train has actually been better than everybody expected.
I'm trying to think, and I'm the one that did the show last night. If he gave up an extra base hit, I think they were all singles. I mean, he looks really good, and if you need, he would be my guess for the long man in a playoff series. If someone gets bombed in the 2nd or 3rd inning, he could get you those 2 or 3 innings to keep you in a game.
Jackson did not give up extra base hits. So the Giants only had 2. I've had 3. Oh no, he gave up the home run to Panic.
Okay.
So the Giants in 2 games have had 3 extra base hits.
But that's very good. All right, so that will take care of it for this one. Ricky will give you a full and proper DoDCast with everything that happened in baseball, both in the majors and the minors, along with more chat considering the second game, and Max Scherzer going in game 2. That one goes in about a couple hours. I think at this point he's probably going to be by himself unless something else breaks.
Max Scherzer against Matt Moore is your starters tonight. So,
right. What'd you think of Stratton today?
Pretty good. I mean, for all things considering, I don't think anybody went out there with his numbers and thought he was going to strike out 10, but that's baseball in a nutshell.
His career high was 4.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes out and strikes out 10. I admit
they need some good news. Also, did they activate Melanson?
Yes, he pitched last night.
Ah, okay. I was gonna say good thing. We don't have the Mark Blanson storyline for you tonight because that happened and missed all the chaos last night.
He pitched in the 8th. He wasn't going to close. I forgot what he did. Because as I said, the game really kind of became a blur after the Harper injury.
I'm interested tonight to see Michael Taylor.
I think Taylor tonight is a big one.
I know you don't look at stats during rehabs, but when you're 7 for 45 with 15 strikeouts, there's something going on. I mean, you're just getting those at bats. I understand that. Those are ugly numbers.
Oh my goodness!
And he needed the 2 hits last night just to get it to that, to like was it like $160 or something. I mean, it was you. I mean, I to be honest, I didn't see any of the games. I'm kind of hoping I can maybe find out a little bit about if there was something different in the swing. I guess we'll find out tonight as he eases back in. But
yeah,
there'll be more attention on him now, and he'll have to figure out. Hopefully, he continues what he did before the oblique injury.
Absolutely. Melanson did not go back-to-back days in his rehab, so I don't know I doubt you will see him tonight. You may see another inning from Strickland, or at least the Nets.
Who gave you Hunter Strickland? All right.
Or that Osage pitched both games of the quote-unquote triple header. Bullpen's in pretty good shape. You didn't have to use the law firm in game 1 today, so they would be ready to go on their regular rest tomorrow. There was no Albers used today.
Don't you find that odd that the law firm has never pitched separately? It's usually they all pitch together. They don't pitch at all.
Well, it's interesting. They really haven't been in the position where they've had to come back from behind to win a game. They're either winning, or it's a safe situation, you set it up, or they're in a game where they're kind of
the one game they came back. Kinsler pitched the 7th I think it was the Chicago game.
Right.
But I would like to. And we all talked about how different roles it was going to be, and yes, it's only 2 weeks, but we're seeing the same roles, and that's cool. I love that. There's just something to watch out for that really. Dusty throws some guys one game, some guys the other game, which is good. These guys know when they're pitching. You like to see Solis get more high leverage because he's pitching great.
We talked about this a lot in the earlier part of the season. You just can't throw spaghetti against a wall and hope it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I am surprised that they didn't try Kinsler as a closer, but I think Doolittle has to blow one before they switch those 3 around. You're on the hot hand.
All right, Madsen, his hand's hot. He throws 100.
All right, so that takes care of this edition of the DoDCast. Ricky will be with you. Hopefully you won't need to see me again. That means that something happened and someone's babysitting Twitter. So Ricky will be with you tonight after the conclusion of the second game of the doubleheader, which we all hope is somewhere closer to 10:30 as opposed to 1 in the morning. So,
and we have the District on Deck Bowl tonight. So,
right.
But Chris Sale against Jordan Montgomery, who got hit in the head with a line drive in batting practice, is as big a mismatch as humanly possible.
See, and this is how the Yankees will win 9-0, right? Every time
if they win 9-0 against Sale, then the Red Sox have big problems.
If you go through and say, "Oh, look, here's a pitching mismatch," it always comes back to bite you in the tushy. Oh yeah, this will never happen. Wrong answer. You can't tell I've had too much coffee today. All right, so we did a couple things on Harper. Ricky did a piece on Goodwin. Don't give Ricky any more crap about that. We planned these things out a couple of days in advance. It ran this morning, and
that article was done Saturday morning before the Bryce Harper injury. So, but there is something to monitor. I mean, Goodwin does not hit righties well.
And now he's hurt.
Right. So now he's not going to get a lot of playing time if he's hurt. So they have an outfield situation. It's just the way it is, and that's what makes Michael Taylor's return so important. And mainly what you should get from the article is more about the concern of what Michael Taylor's been doing on his rehab assignment. That's really the case in point of it, and how Goodwin would have got the time had Bryce Harper been healthy.
Absolutely. All right, so I'll have that, and I'm not sure what else we're doing tomorrow, but at least some takeaways from what the Harper injury means and what can be done to fix poor situations like this. So for Ricky and for Drew, who's having a very good time down in Nats Park, I'm Ron Juckett. We'll talk to you. Well, Ricky will talk to you in about 6 hours. No, not 6 hours. Yeah, 5.5 hours.
About 5. Let's go 5. About 5.
So Ricky will talk to you in about 5 hours. I'm Ron Juckett. We'll talk to you later.